Hello and welcome. I'm Shankar, your instructor for Statistics for Business 1.
And I'm Liza, so much the wiser.
Didn't know you could rap. We continue to analyze a tourism receipts dataset that we have downloaded from the World Bank website. In this segment, we'll learn how to analyze such categorical variables and present our results using visual charts. Along the way, we'll discover a powerful tool to summarize categorical variables called a pivot table.
I've heard of it.
Yes, and let me remind you that you will derive maximum benefit if you work alongside me. You're even supplied the dataset that we are working with. Keep the All Countries tab open, like I will do right now. So here is my Final Countries tab. When it comes to categorical data, it makes no sense to carry out operations like averaging. What would be meaningful is if we could count the records against each category. For example, it would make sense to figure out how our 161 countries are distributed across the many regions.
How many regions are there?
Now there are two ways to solve it. One is what I call a hands and knees approach. Just club the countries together, perhaps by a filter, along region and go counting.
That'll take a long time.
Sure, and plenty of scope for human error. What we could do instead is to construct a pivot table.
Aha!
I will begin by selecting the columns that I will examine. In our case, these are the first three on our spreadsheet. I will select country name, country code, region of course, and go all the way down. This is my data set. I'll go ahead, click on data and select pivot table. When I do that, I get a menu asking me whether I would like to choose where to place the pivot table. I will select new worksheet and OK. And what happened? I got a pivot table builder and an empty pivot table. This is a skeleton of the pivot table that we're going to build on this spreadsheet. I will go ahead and name this new sheet as region counts. So I have region counts over here. Next, we will build up the contents of the pivot table carefully. We have this neat pivot table builder wizard showing the variables that we have chosen to examine. We have country name, we have country code, region. Our question concerns the distribution of the countries along the various regions. So, the region variable is what I will now drag and drop to the left. So, I have dragged it and dropped it, and let me go ahead and raise the resolution to 200%.
Now I see all the regions.
Sure, all of the regions are here, Lisa, and that answers the question that you had. We are almost done. We just need the counts. For this, I shall choose another variable in the builder wizard, such as the country code. Now, if we choose a categorical variable, the default operation that the builder will perform is a count. If it's a numerical variable, it will sum up everything. Watch what I do. So I will get back to the sheet, click on the pivot table, and I get back my pivot table builder. I will drag the country code down to the values field over here, and if you notice carefully, it says count of whatever it is that I have dragged down. And what you see on the left, you've got a bunch of numbers adding up to 161 countries, of course. Did you also get that? This is the pivot table in response to our question. Most of the countries in our data set belong to Europe and Central Asia. You see that? Europe and Central Asia.
Yep, nearly a quarter of them.
Now, what's better than a visual way to present all of these results? For this, I will first use a pie chart. This is a graphical way of depicting proportions within a data set. So here I have my pivot table. I'm going to just select everything but the last row. I'll click on charts and enter a pie chart. This is how I do it. And I've got a pie chart over here. Then I get all of the regions that make up the pie chart. Now let me warn you, most people tend to select the whole pivot table, which will give you another picture which is a wrong one.
Oops, that'll include the total.
Absolutely, and that's wrong. Let's change the title of this pie chart into something meaningful, such as regional distribution of countries. I can also throw in the numbers as labels to the pie chart with a right click. How simple can it get? So here is my title, regional distribution of countries in our data set, of course. I will go ahead, right click and add data labels, which by default are just the numbers. And if I hover over the data label, I know what numbers they're talking about and which region it is. We get a good sense of proportion just by looking at the slices. Like Europe and Central Asia, Latin America and Caribbean make up for half of the countries in our data set, approximately speaking. But had we not thrown in the actual numbers as labels, could we have distinguished between the maroon and the green slices?
No.
For such slim differences, we will use a bar chart instead. So let me go ahead and do that. I will select the pivot table and all the rows that make up the pivot table. I'll add a column chart. I'll get rid of what is being shown and rename this regional distribution of countries. I have two bars that are very close to each other, but I know which one is higher. Now let me go ahead and add labels to it, and it leaves me no doubt as to whether Europe has more countries represented than Latin America. Now can you make out that difference?
Sure I can.
A bar chart is also helpful when there are several categories involved. Can you imagine what would become of a pie chart that has, say, 20 categories? There's not much sense you can make, can you? So we have discussed three different ways of summarizing categorical variables: a pivot table, a pie chart, and a bar chart. We must bear in mind that our data set does not reflect the entire world. This world, I mean. In our earlier session, we had to eliminate over a fifth of the countries in our download from the World Bank data site because of insufficient data. So whenever we present these charts, we'll have to place a disclaimer announcing that it's not representing the whole world. There is one more pitfall which concerns bar charts. We've even designed an exercise to explore this aspect. Bottom line, when it comes to categorical variables, we will employ counts to describe them.
How about if we have numerical data?
Patience, Lisa. We'll cover that in our next segment. So see you then.